Just a bit of explanation how these breakable barrels work. As you can see, just a little demonstration is what happens. Everything explodes, it flies everywhere. Oh, beautiful. And it's all gone. So, how does this work actually? The barrel is split into two different barrel models. So let's just pop open one of these. Yeah, this guy. Here we go. This is the wood barrel. As you can see, it has got a spawn fractured object. So this is the parent. Then we've got the children as the individual models, the actual wood barrel, and the fractured version. Probably easier to show you. Christ, so many. Wood barrel. That's what it looks like. That's the barrel. And this is the fractured version. Fracturing, very easy. Right into Blender. Oh, this is something else I've been working on. Right into Blender, but let's just show you on this object. Go to Quick Effects, Cell Fracture. Yep, let's do it. Bang, it's fractured. Done. Nice and simple. How is this done? All you have to do is add in your preferences under Get Extension, Cell Fracture. That's it. And you can quickly fracture whatever prop you need. So how does this actually work? Now that we've got the models, what we want to do is do a model swap. And what happens is that when we model swap, we are swapping this good barrel. Let's just jump into this prefab just to show you. So we got the wood barrel. This is what you'll always see. And if not the wood barrel, then you'll see the fractured version. So all we're doing is a model swap on these, nice and simple. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy. Importantly, what we have done so that we have the physics sorted, we add a bunch of rigid bodies to all the fractured pieces. So when you do import into Blender, from Blender into here, we're doing nothing special with it. We're just taking all the fractured pieces, we're selecting all of them, we're adding a rigid body. We don't really care how we set it up. We're actually doing the setup through a script, just to keep things very, very neat. In fact, the idea is that this is the only overhead you should need to do is just set up rigid body, make sure there's a collider. Because we have some complex geometry, we've had to make it a convex because Unity's physics system cannot determine which side is actually outside of the mesh. So here we have the wood barrel, very similar. We've got the mesh, we've got a rigid body. This you do have to set up. Obviously, if you're having small props, lighter mass, big props, bigger mass. Nice and simple. Continuous collision, just so that things aren't weirdly clipping through as you bump into them. Obviously, depends how heavy the player is compared to the mass. That is how far things will bump. So, what's actually doing some of the workload? We've got our prop health. Prop health has got maximum health and an action. So let's just jump into prop health. It is our basic health script, which you can kind of see over here on the right. Where's the divider? There it is. This is just our standard health script. Decreasing health, increasing health. We can save the health amounts. And all we're doing is inheriting it, and we're overriding the decrease health method with our own implementation that says, hey, you know what, do the same thing, but instead of passing in damage, so you would normally have an object with, say, 50 health, and your shots would do like 7 to 14 damage, and you would have some scaling factor and some multiplier. This basically says, hey, whatever thing that is dealing damage to this, convert whatever damage that is. Basically, just don't use it. We'll just take every hit is 1 damage. So all you're setting is the number of hits for the object to be destroyed. Once that's done, eventually, if it is dead, we're going to do a few things here. We're going to, at least on this wooden barrel, we're going to turn off the rigid body, its colliders, its renderer, and then we're going to invoke this fracture action. So remember how we had that little action over here? So fracture action. So this is a Unity event. You can essentially add your own Unity events. You just drag any part of a script or game object, whatever, throw it into there, and then you'll have all the public methods exposed here, just like the one we've made a spawn fracture part, which we'll go on to see how this actually works. So spawn fractured object, this lives on the parent. So the important thing here is that we can use the parent to easily enable and disable the children, as well as if this barrel has rolled, it is easy to reposition the fractured version over it. And you'll see how it is done over here. Let's just get rid of that to make this a bit bigger. So spawn fractured object. We have some parameters. Let me just show the parameters. They'll be easy to recognize over here. We've got our fractured prefab that we want to be swapping in. This is the original, so the wood barrel, that's that. We've got the rigid body setup for all these children of the fractured pieces. So we want to give them some weight, some dampening, give them gravity, set up the collision. I'm not sure if collision is necessary. I think discrete works. You don't need to do continuous, but I kept that as an option. And an impulse strength. It actually does between 5 and 10, some random number there. An explosion offset. So it will explode from the center of this geometry, but you can offset it. And the disable after however many seconds. So I've got between 3 and 5 seconds. This entire wooden barrel fractured will be disabled. So it's blown up, all the pieces are falling everywhere, and we make them disappear. So just a quick overview of what this actually looks like. So there we are, we've got our collision mode. This is actually what it uses, collision detection mode. .discrete is we're going to set it as a default. I've set up some default settings that I think work, but it depends on your object and the feel. Sometimes you have to do some tweaking. We're going to cache all the rigid bodies because we have a lot of pieces. In fact, we have a lot of pieces. I think this was something like 45 pieces. So just keeping it light. We have to cache all the rigid bodies. So on awake, we're gonna get all the components in children of type rigid body. Because they are inactive, we need to add in the includes inactive boolean for this. So we are actually getting also inactive object rigid bodies. So we're going to cache all that. This is all in awake, so it's going to be done in a loading screen. And of course, we'll just do a bit of check. This is just to stop myself from actually doing something stupid like putting the fractured object, forgetting to put the rigid bodies on them to begin with, and then just wondering, hey, why is it broken? So we're just checking if the length of the rigid bodies is the same as the child count, which means that all the children have rigid bodies. That's all we're doing. This is the spawn fractured parts. This is the main thing that's doing all the work. Remember from our prop health, this fracture action is actually calling that. It is actually invoking this scripts method spawn fracture parts, and that is set up in the inspector. What we're going to do is first we're going to make sure that it's lined up with the original prefab so that it looks like it's you won't notice the swap at all. Then we're going to activate it once we've lined it up so that you don't see some weird teleporting going on. And then we're going to go through all our rigid bodies. So we're going to just make sure we set up all the children appropriately. We're going to give them all an impulse force. An impulse location. So this is where it's going to explode. And then after that, an impulse force. And eventually, we're going to then, at the very end, we're going to run a coroutine to disable it. So normally you would run, say, destroy. You'd say destroy an object, so destroy game object, and then you say disable delay. But we are just disabling it. We're not destroying it, because destroying does incur a bit of a cost for garbage collection and all of that. So instead of doing that, we'll just disable it. It'll have no cost within our project at all. And yeah, nice and simple. We're saying, hey, the fractured one and the original, just make them false. The reason we're doing the original as well is while we have in our prop health turned off the renderer, we don't want anything to be iterating through it, whether it's managers or anything, because once we're done with this, it's done. But we want to avoid the garbage collection that destroy incurs. So nice and simple, we're just going to deactivate the original as well as the fractured. So after some delay, all the fractured pieces have, or rather, all the fractured pieces have blown apart. There is some delay since the very beginning of that happening, between 3 and 5 seconds is what we've configured. Then it will just be disabled. That's it. Nice and simple. And this wooden barrel is now ready, which means the next object, we just have a spawn fractured object. We add its children, or the original and the fractured equivalent. Give, obviously, the original some health so it can be destroyed. Give it whatever mesh, rigid body, or whatever else. If it doesn't need that, say if it's it's a wall lamp and it just stays in the wall, you obviously don't need that. But yeah, give it some health so that it can be destroyed by some amount of hits. And for all the fractured pieces, we add a rigid body. That's it.